Hey there, so welcome to the review of February. And in this video my goal is to share with you the progress that I've made and talk about the things that went well or maybe not so well, so that by the end of this you have a great idea about what it's like to make a month of progress towards ambitious fitness goals. So let's look at the calendar. And well, as you can see, I haven't continued the line actually, because I noticed that I didn't need it anymore to get me through the days where I wasn't feeling so motivated, because this series alone gave me enough pressure which kept me accountable. So then let's review the month. So I've expanded the graph where I've plotted my weight against the strength sessions I did. And January ended approximately here, but then I got the flu and I didn't do any kind of movements for over a week. So as you can see, I've approximately lost, what is this? I've lost over a kilogram of body mass just from this week of being sick. So that just shows that it's very easy to lose the progress you've made in a very short amount of time. I really didn't expect this at all. There's a slight trend upwards for the month, so I guess that by the end of next month I will be at the same level as I was and at the end of January. Now in the introduction, I set myself the goal to only lie in bed and do nothing at all in the days where I am too sick to do sports. But I realized in that week that this was an unrealistic goal because doing nothing for 3 days straight is so boring. I couldn't help myself to kill some time with a screen. And then there was the second problem that at the end of that week, I was feeling so much better that I could start working, although I still wasn't good enough to start training again. So there was a bit of that gray zone in between. And I realized that it's not really helpful to either swing the pendulum completely to resting and then completely to working out again, but that this gray zone is actually quite natural. One day before I started training properly again, I just went on a long walk so I could get in the rhythm of working out again. So yeah, I'm not doing that anymore, that I'm only recovering or only training. And since I'm not tracking the days on the calendar anymore, it also doesn't really matter anymore. Now, although the first 10 days of February were missing, there are still a lot of things that changed. So I've made 5 bullet points that are more or less related to each other that I want to go over for the rest of this video. Okay, so the first thing, I noticed that I was getting a lot of cramps in all kinds of weird muscles where you normally wouldn't get cramps. I tried taking magnesium. I'm not sure it helped, maybe a bit. I also experimented with just letting the muscle cramp and see what happens. And because I have 2 feet, I could run an A/B test. So I cramped one feet and not the other. And after 2 days, it made no difference. So I stopped doing that. Now, massaging the underside of my feet with a ball or massaging other muscles with the hand or a fascia gun, that also helped a bit. But the surprise discovery I made when I went to a parkour course for university was that what helped the most were actually, how shall I say, weird exercises. And I never would have done them if it weren't for the course that I've tried for the first time. And I'm not gonna try to describe all of the exercises we did, but the takeaway was that these exercises weren't really difficult or hard. There were just movements I'd never done before, like moving small muscles, moving your feet from side to side, up and down like this, or extending the leg with the feet raised and then feet stretched when you descend the leg again, or things like that. It were those little exercises where after half an hour I noticed that I had activated all of my walking muscles, but I hadn't exhausted them. So we break free from the 2 sides of the extreme where the muscle is either freezing because it's not moving at all, or it's unable to recover because we're straining it a lot. This activation is something in the middle, which is great for recovery. Okay, so that was the first point. The second point is that I also tried another course of university, which was athletic training. Now, I have done athletic training in the past, but I haven't done it for years. So when I did sprint training again for the first time in years, I was really surprised that even though it wasn't exhausting on that day, I still had plenty of sore muscles, especially in my torso the next day. And this is when I realized that actually I have a lot more small muscles that want to get trained too than big muscles that are visible to the outside. And so I thought that maybe being fit instead of just looking fit was having strong and functional small muscles that enable you to actually use the big muscles in the real world. Because in the real world, there's no real use for, I don't know, doing biceps curls with a bar of 20 kilograms. But there is a real use of lifting heavy things. But in order to lift things, you also need balance and plenty of other muscles. And those other muscles are the small muscles. And so the reason this was an important discovery is for my third bullet point. So I want to explain it first. I noticed that my right knee wasn't actually hurting anymore because I ran a half marathon half a year ago. But actually because my entire frontal muscle chain and all the tendons here, they weren't smooth anymore. They weren't oiled. They were stiff and hard. So my overall theory was that me doing strength exercises on the machine, which uses the big muscles, who then get exhausted and have a hard time to recover because when I sit, they are in a static stretch, which means that when I run, I have to rely on the small muscles because the big ones are exhausted. But the small muscles aren't that strong because I don't strengthen them in strength training, and then results in the entire leg, big and small muscles, being overused and overstrained. So in order to fix this, what I tried was to first sit a bit less and stand more, which is very difficult because if I work then I can't stand on the time, so I have to sit sometimes. But second, I tried to do more stabilization and calisthenics exercises for my leg workout instead of using the machines as much, because they actually use more muscles than machines do. And the first time I tried it, it was actually pretty great. I got more that feeling that I got from the parkour session where I had activated my muscles instead of just exhausting the few big ones. However, my problem is not gone yet, but hopefully next month I can tell you whether that worked or not. So then, let's come to the fourth bullet point. And this one is about diet. First, I tried cutting as much carbohydrates out of my diet as I could. And second, I swapped my dinner with my breakfast. The reason I did those changes is because I learned about the ketogenic diet, which was a term I've already heard about. But I listened to a podcast from the Diary of a CEO with the keto expert, and she talked about the fact that actually being in a ketogenic state of metabolism was actually quite a natural thing, and that adolescents or babies go into the state basically every night because their metabolism is so much faster, which means that they drain all the blood sugar from their blood faster while they're asleep. And then if there's no sugar left in the liver, they have to use ketones in order to fuel their brain and body. But as we get older and our metabolism slows down, the blood sugar doesn't decrease quite as fast, so that we never get into this ketogenic state. So what I tried to do was to have longer stretches of not eating any carbohydrates in order to see whether I would get into the ketogenic state a bit more frequently. And at the beginning it was quite difficult to resist eating carbohydrates because I craved them. But after a few days it got much easier, and I also noticed that my hunger was much steadier than before. So instead of feeling full directly after eating, the feeling of fullness comes more gently and decreases more gently. At least that's what I found personally. Maybe you have different experiences. And the reason for which I swapped my dinner, which is my biggest meal, with my breakfast, which was my smallest meal, is that I also heard in a different podcast, is that going to bed with a completely full stomach is actually not that helpful for your sleep. And because I'm very much an advocate for sleep, I wanted to try something to see whether I could improve my sleep even more. Now, have I seen any difference? I'm not sure actually. Maybe once I revert back, I will actually notice the difference. I'm not sure. But yeah, so changing my diet was the fourth bullet point. And now to the last one, and that's a bit of a small one, but I noticed that actually I have shoulders. I don't know, I've never quite used the muscles I have in my shoulders. And there are quite a few. So there are ones that go right here, then that go to the middle, and that go more to the back, which are responsible for moving your arm in all of these different directions. Since I've been doing yoga and cross training and other different things that required me to pull up my arms like that and move them all around the room. My shoulders, they were so exhausted. And this is something I have sometimes, that I start to use new muscle groups and then realize that actually, wow, I have muscles everywhere in my body. Because when I started doing deadlifts, I used muscles in my back that I had just never used before. So that was an unlock. And so now I had a new unlock, which are my shoulder muscles. Now, these were the major 5 things that happened during this month. So as a conclusion, I might say that I have changed so much, I don't really know yet what works or not. There were some days where I felt so lost because I had no clue about what was working and what I was doing. Hopefully by next month I won't have changed so much again, but instead refined and kept the things that worked and reverted back to the original in the cases where it didn't. But that said, it's what I'm gonna have to see next month. So if you want to follow me on that journey, I suggest you subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Otherwise, I just hope I see you in the next video. Bye!